Hey, I'm Lord Doodles, and today I'm going to be making my intro. This is the first animation I've ever made in Krita, so I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Before recording, I made sure my sketchy version of the animation was exactly how I wanted it. I downloaded my fonts, Salonikia, Big Fat Pencil 2, and Happy Fun Marker Time. I have that one font, Salonikia, for the word Lord, and two different fonts for the word Doodles, because I'm going to alternate between the two to make it wiggle every couple frames. Then I went ahead and put the words on the screen. I had some trouble getting the words to work, because when you use the text tool, it makes the text into a vector layer, but I managed to get it to work in the end. So I got my words on the screen, then I started messing around with the frames, which is a lot like layers, but instead of layering on top of each other, they're one after another in an animation. I played around with the frame intervals of the wiggling of doodles. Ultimately, I ended up doing about 10 frames between each change in font. Once I got that sorted out, I began with the actual animation. I was copy-pasting my main frame and then using the move tool to move the words to where I wanted them for that frame, as they moved onto the screen, referencing my sketchy version of the animation for how the words moved and how fast. Of course, nothing was final, so I ended up changing a lot of the aspects as I worked. One of the trickiest parts for me to animate was the squish and squash that happened when the words moved to the middle of the screen. I didn't end up squishing or squashing the words, but rather moving them a little bit past their destination and then bouncing back. I thought it ended up looking really cool, so I guess it worked out. This is one of my first animations, so I'm excited by the thought of maybe redoing it in a couple of months to see how I've improved. So I spent quite a while just polishing the animation before I moved on to the final stage, adding my little crown guy. I decided I wanted the animation, which started out being 3 seconds, to be twice as long, 6 seconds, so my viewers had a chance to read Lord Doodles before the crown guy popped onto the screen, because that could be a little distracting. But I didn't want to just decrease the frame rate or up the play speed, so I spaced out the frames. In Krita, any space where there isn't a frame, it just projects the image from the last frame in the animation. There's a little blue line connecting frames to show that the frame plays for all of them in between, so I had no problem just moving all of the frames a little bit further apart, lengthening the animation. I ended up with 149 frames, 25 frames per second, 6-second animation. Interestingly, even though my animation technically has 150 frames, since the frame count starts at 0, it reads 149 frames. Frame 0 is the first frame. I also played with the size and color of my intro. I wanted to make sure there was a way to easily adjust this so that I could make different versions of my intro anytime I wanted. I also messed with the colors. Again, I wanted to find an option that I could change at any time to have different themes. I ended up using HSV/HSL adjustment mask on the hue, saturation, lightness setting, which had a convenient shortcut with Ctrl-U. I had a lot of fun playing with the colors. I ended up using simpler colors like black, dark gray, white, but I still like having the option to change it at any time. I found out how to make a transform mask layer and adjusted the size to be larger, and this affected my entire animation. Every single frame. I could change this whenever I wanted just by deactivating the layer and making a new transform layer. The only problem I had with this was I was accidentally using an older version of Krita, so it wasn't behaving. It was creating strange, transparent white lines on my animation, which were drawn on a grid. Since they were drawn on a grid, I had to wonder if it was a problem with Krita, and it was. Whatever was happening was fixed on the update. Finally, it was time to add my little crown guy. I haven't named him yet, but I get the feeling he's going to be my logo. He's really cute. I played around with different designs for him. I picked what I thought looked the cutest. It was interesting how much he changed just on where I positioned the eyes. I thought that the lower I placed them, the cuter he got. The hardest decision while I was designing him was deciding whether his eyes should be touching or not. In the end, I decided they shouldn't touch, but it was a close call. Animating my crown guy was a lot easier than animating the words. The timing was pretty finalized at that point, so no experimentation was needed. It was fun animating, because At this point, it was just doodling and coloring things in. And my crown guy wasn't in the entire animation either, so it didn't take nearly as long to animate. At this point, I was feeling pretty good since the project was almost done. I could see how it was going to turn out, and I was able to play with different colors and themes. One thing I did, which I think helped the animation look prettier and more doodly, was having two different versions of the eye iris, so I could alternate between the two versions every couple of frames, just like how my doodle word wriggles, to give it kind of a hand-drawn look to it. Another thing I did, which was really helpful, was making the crown, eyes, and eye color all on different layers, so I could adjust the colors or size if needed, just like I did with the words. So when I was done making the intro, I went ahead and I started making my profile picture, and I realized that the crown guy didn't look quite how I wanted him to. So I went back to my intro, and I changed up the eye shape to be more egg-shaped, and I made the iris larger, and it looks way better now. And the animation was just about done. The last few things I did was play around with the colors a little while longer, because it was fun, and like I mentioned earlier, I updated Krita and was really pleased to find that the weird lines were gone. And then I exported. I had some trouble exporting because apparently it doesn't export my Krita project files if they're in my Documents folder. So I needed to move my project files over to my desktop before exporting. And some formats don't support exporting a transparent background, so I ended up transporting it as a .mov file. So I used that, and I was done. I'm really impressed with how it turned out. This is one of my first animations, and my first animation ever on Krita. And I think everything moves smoothly. The words come in, they bounce, they move out, and that little crown just pops on, makes this cute little guy. He blinks, and I think it turned out great. So tell me what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!